Namaste.
Namaste.
Well, welcome.
Hey. Okay, so this is not going to behave for me.
Here we go.
Thomas, are we live? Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first satsang since Asilomar. So it's been a while. And for those of you who don't know, Brahmananda is stuck at an airport in Oakland until just about midnight when he heads off to to Copenhagen. And Tom, as camera person and crowdcast person and Zoom person. So if you have any questions or trouble, you just contact Tom. But we're excited. It's a big transition because we will meet Brahmananda in about a month in between his trip to India, and we go back to Europe, and then he leaves us for bigger and better things. So,
Okay, it's good to be back. See some old faces newly. Michael, welcome. Radha, welcome. All of you, welcome.
And how's Marilyn doing?
She's doing better.
She's doing better.
Under the weather.
Yeah.
She's looking forward to being here soon.
All right. All right. Yes.
Community
that's right.
satsang. Yeah.
So Satchmai and I have been really working very intensively in the domain of Prakriti. And since we've got back, there was a correction in my system that inevitably occurs, which pretty much processes out through my samadhis accumulated impressions that are gathered in the process of manifesting a great deal. Like we were a lot of new people, new groups, quite an intense period of time. And it's quite challenging. Went on for a day and a half. Actually, didn't really break until this afternoon. So, and the thing I realize is that purification process, that burning out of impressions that have been gathered, is only possible because of these samadhi states, that they allow me to reset. It resets my whole system. And what I returned to was the absolute, to that which is on the other end of the spectrum from asat to sat. It's up here. And how happy I was to be there. Yeah. And in the process, it makes me realize that everything in this work, just as it is in all of our lives, is this process of experience overtaking our awareness, and then awareness needing to overtake the experience. Otherwise, experience can't take us any further. And it's the opposite is true. The awareness overtakes the experience. The experience, you lose access to your ability to feel love, to feel connection, to feel in the world. That's just the nature of awareness. That it can't go past a point unless the experience can catch up with it. So it's these two tracks that we have to be able to integrate. Now, it's clear to me that the one that's least accessible to us as embedded human beings is, of course, the awareness. Awareness is what we wake up to. We wake up out of the use of the awareness component of our intellect and our mind. We break out of that box. We meet the actual awareness without the coding of the mind, without the coding of the story, without the coding of the information we've acquired. We wake up into this direct knowing. So we really don't have awareness until we actually have been able to experience direct knowing. The quality of that, establishing that, is the whole first part of the Gita. It's the whole first part of all the teachings. And I was reading today, this late morning, something from a book I carry along with the Mother book and the Gita book. And this is from Sri Ramana Maharishi. And there was, a significant portion of my time in India was in relationship with Arunachala. And there's no doubt that what the principle of the Shiva principle of Arunachala was kept alive by Ramana Maharishi. And it's a vibrant, tangible force. This force, and this is the power of Trivanamali in Arunachala, is it brings us into a deeper and more profound connection to that true awareness, that quality of direct knowing. So it was sometimes for me, I just like to kind of delve into the particular vantage point he brought, because it was very, very severe, very, very radical for our Westerners. I mean, leaving his home, leaving everything behind at the age of 16, living with absolutely nothing, sleeping in gutters and in nooks and crannies, and just in this utter focused, disciplined orientation to the awareness that had woken to him in his bedroom back when he was 16. And that ferocity is popped him out of any attachment to his identity as a person for many, many, many years. His mother would come to him and he wouldn't recognize her as a mother. She would beg to be seen by him and he would dismiss her, ignore her. It wasn't until years later that Maharishi was able to, Ramana Maharishi was able to begin to see the validity of the experiential part of life for himself. And this is where he came forward in his compassion to explain what it is he had come to. And even though most of the time previously he had just stayed in his silence, he began to interpret the teachings of the Vedas and support the people who were coming to him. And at some point was able to recognize his mother and a cow. We don't know beyond that, but we know that he was able to bring in that piece of experience, and it richened his ability to reach people, to be effective. It brought it down from those rare heights into something that we could approach. So when he wrote, and more so than I do, he wrote from that very, very, pretty much fully established in that very lofty tower of transcendence. And he pointed to an extremely simple path. Know the self. Concentrate on the self. So I just read a little bit from this book. Practice. What is the method of practice? As the self of a person who tries to attain self-realization is not different from him, or as there is nothing other than or superior to him to be attained by him, self-realization being only the realization of one's own nature. So he speaks cryptically, writes his words cryptically, but he's just saying, what we say, that it's about finding what is finding, not seeking, finding what you already are, that you know but have not yet realized. And this quality of what you are, he's describing as the self in capital S. In this case, he's using self as that part of our I amness that is eternal. And that part of I amness is the Sat. So it is the ultimate. Now, how deeply we can know that is veritable, but it is always there within each of us. So that which can know its true nature is that principle of identity associated with the word capital S-E-L-F, self, with no object, with no content, with no need for a reflection, completely whole and full in its own self-existent reality. Now, doesn't that sound good? It is freedom. But it's not freedom if we've not been able to do what he did, or have enough balance between the experiential component and our awareness to actually be able to take residence in that eternal quality of what we are, the self. In this is his word, self. So that would be the what that can know, but not be a person, the what that has a person, the what that is the context in which existence arises, the what that is it is the paradigm in which existence arises, which previously you would get identified with its content, its thought, its feeling, its sensation, its idea, its belief, its story. But in the self itself, none of that exists. The awareness exists, but not the content, not as compelling aspects where we lose our identity as a self into the nature of the thought or the nature of the feeling or the nature of the sensation. So everything that we do spiritually is an inquiry or attending to our original nature, to that which is already here. So ubiquitous, so obvious, so plain that we can't see it. We can't see it because of the distraction of the vehicle that occupies, that holds our self, individual self. And that's the paradox, because this principle of self is both individual and universal. There is only one self. Literally, when you strip out the content, that the essential truth of what you are, that never born and never die, is not yours in the sense of personal identity, but it's a piece of a principle, an expression of a principle which animates all life, everything existing. So when you find yourself, inevitably, you'll be able to recognize everyone else's self. And you'll be able to see that the self inhabits, infuses, animates, and preserves all existence. Such a simple message. But to actually be able to experience this, by the way, the awareness, when it wakes up, is an experience. It's an experience in awareness, but it's an experience. And this nature of the experiential awareness has this convincing reality because it's true, because it is an expression of that principle of self within us. But it's not the same as the experience of our personal self, and because of that, it's very difficult for our opening to that eternal principle of awareness, the self, and still have a human body and still try to function in the world as an ordinary person. Ramana Maharishi did not live as an ordinary person. He lived off the rainwater. He lived off the scraps that would come to him. When he was young, no one was recognizing what he was, just some street vagabond. It took years and years before he, in that complete stripping away of all the accumulated impressions that came with his body. Now, he was only 16, so he didn't have a lot of impression of his own, but obviously he carried a quality of intelligence with him. He carried a capacity of awakening with him from other lives. We're all certain of that. But he refused to let any part of life, the motives that we have to survive or to care for our comfort or to have things our way. He didn't try to seek relief from the heat or the cold or any of that. This was severe yoga. Now, what came from that, what gave him the strength to do that, was his connection to himself. Because that can give you the strength. You lose interest in those things. All you want is that. This becomes the absorbing fixation of your attention. And anything that's not that, without effort on your part, you are rejecting. It's only the individual system, the emotional nature, the physical nature that's still struggling in that process. But he had that strength to not listen or act on those promptings. If I die here in this sewer in this flood, so be it. If the insects eat my flesh, so be it. If the heat is so searing that everyone is hiding and everything living is sweltering, and this will kill me, so be it. That being has crossed the point of no return. That being has absolute clarity on how to act or how to not act in existence. He has full authority over his individuality and its purpose in existence. And he held on to that throughout all the stages that came later in his recognition and then people coming to him in his vast fame. He refused to have anything to do with organizations and with how people were handled. He would sit wherever there was a place to sit. If there wasn't room for him, there wasn't room for them. He did not mind. There was no prompting. So he carried a purity. He became like just an archetype of the potential of human awakened consciousness. And then that has had extraordinary repercussion to everyone who's contacted him or people who have contacted the people who have contacted him and so on, because of the purity of that expression. But us Westerners cannot do this. I tried. I went as far as I could go as an individual before my samskaras said back into the world. And I'm recognizing that Ramana Maharishi was from another time zone, another era, when this was the tradition, this was the avenue. But he was alive the same time Sri Aurobindo and the mother was alive. And they were recognizing that there was a grace that was coming in, a force that was coming in that would allow people who are more ordinary to be able to come into this same relationship with the self without having to be that severe in their experiential identity as a person. That it would be possible to have a dual identity, one that knows its absolute truth and one that is a person at the same time. But I believe the danger of this adaptation, the danger of this recognition is that in order to receive this force, we have to really be committed to that in ourselves that awakens, that is awake. We have to make that our primary focus of attention, even while we may be attending other parts of our life. And the ways that pull us away are, of course, the structures of identification, attachment, desire, and all the other spin-offs of those: competition, fear, resentment, anger, greed, lust. All of these then become distortions in our ability to stay focused on that one absolute principle. Can this path of inquiry be followed by all aspirants? This is suitable only for ripe souls. The rest should follow different methods according to their state of minds. What are the other methods? They are stuti, japa, dhyana, yoga, jnana. Stuti is singing the praises of the Lord with great feelings of devotion. Japa is uttering the names of the gods or sacred mantras like Om, either mentally or verbally. The vulgarities of the mind will not be evidenced to those who follow these methods. That's their disadvantage. The japa, the chanting, the mantras will bypass the structures of the mind that still hold you, but they are aligning your system. Not as effective as direct experience, direct awareness experience, but a path to being capable of that kind of focus. Dhyana denotes the repetition of the names, mentally, japa, with feelings of devotion. In this method, the state of the mind will be understood easily, for the mind does not become concentrated and diffused simultaneously. When one is in dhyana, it does not contact the object of the senses, and when it is in contact with the object, it is not in dhyana. Therefore, those who are in this state can observe the vulgarities of the mind then and there, and by stopping the mind from thinking other thoughts, fix in its dhyana. Perfection in dhyana is the state of abiding in the self. As meditation functions in an exceeding subtle manner at the source of mind, it is not difficult to perceive its rise and subsidence. Okay, he then goes on and listing other technologies as means of being able to come to the state where the annihilation of the error of our separate self can be accomplished. It's an annihilation. Not that those qualities of you wouldn't be there, but your identity with that, the compulsive grip of your attention with those parts of yourself is broken, cut. Therefore, the samskaras and the inclinations of your natures can still arise, but the consciousness dwells and rests on the self, bides in the self, in that principle. Then all that arises in that quality of consciousness is burned, unwound, completed. So in the Bhagavad Gita, this state of consciousness, abiding in the self, is pointed to in the 5th chapter. And it's the point of no return. The point that once that comes and you abide there, you stretch out the rubber band of the habit of your previous existence, and then it breaks. How far you have to stretch varies with each of us. For me, it took a little over 6 years. And that essential quality that believed my mind, that believed my story, that believed the habit of me that I was before, snapped. It didn't mean those inclinations weren't there in the body or in the behavior or in the automatic responses to life, but the abiding was from the self and not the ego, not the identity. In that moment, I ceased being a human being and became a divine being. Now, it doesn't mean the journey is over. As long as I had a body, as long as you have a body, as long as all of us have a body, that's actually when you're the mature soul. That's actually where it's just the end of the ripening and the blossoming, the completion, the maturation of what it meant for you to break out of your identity as a separate being suffering, subject to the vulgarities and the cycles of the gunas and the planets and lives and errors and histories of the program of the quagmire of the collective consciousness. You're free. You're free. You're free in multiple ways. You're free to choose. You're free to experience. And the nature of the experience is it's free. It has no claim. It has no mark that can bind you because it's always immediate. It is always there and then gone. So one of the markers of your abiding in the self is this living in the now, living in this moment, not clinging, projecting, creating a future, changing a past. It is simply in each moment, this capacity to actually be in the moment. And of course, then all there is moments. There isn't time. And what are moments? Nothing but enjoyment of being a self realized, aware of its nature, in existence as itself as a person. Now, there's prices to pay. Emotional, physical, and mental prices as the person. That goes on as part of the transformation process and actually never ends, but the quantum of the content that you inherited or you took on becomes less and less and less once you abide in the self. It all just starts unraveling. One of the characteristics of the unraveling is the falling away of repulsion or preference. When you no longer need life to be this way versus that way, you need to be with these people, not those people. Whenever that whole structure of separation falls away, you experience this equanimity, which is, by the way, is a form of samadhi. In the Bhagavad Gita, they call equanimity samadhi. That means no matter what has arise, it's just arising. It's not better or worse. It is simply, and that's not something you can imagine. It's not something you can work at. It is something that comes as a symptom of being able to come to a point where you've been able to integrate the realization that's come to you in your lived personhood. Okay, so I've been doing this for some years. One of the things that came to me, which were the samadhis that lasted for 3.5 years, it was clear to me that this is not everyone. Not everyone has this. And it's a grace. It's like I have a built-in cleaning route. I get rotor-rooted every time there is a samadhi state. You know, I can't, because I'm in quality, I can't, it's not happiness and bliss. It is something else. But it's the most important something else that there could be. And in the process, it rotor-roots out any impressions that I've acquired that are associated with the interaction with life. And as I've manifesting now since 2009, I have constantly chosen to come into life and to take on the content and to meet those aspects of the content that exists within me, and then have to go whatever the process or the lessons or the consequences of previous choices as they arose as part of the process. It has not ended. For example, I just got an email yesterday from a grandchild. My son had 4 children. Just around about 2 years before his death, he died at 37. His wife divorced him, married a Muslim, became a fanatic, and turned all his children against him. And he no longer had access to him. So when he passed, she was very resistant to have anything to do with me or my side of the family, as in order to keep her control over her children. But they were wonderful children. We could see right from the very beginning that no matter what it was with the father, no matter what it was with the mother, no matter how disturbed she was, there was just a healthy cohesion among them. And among them was their youngest. And the youngest Satchmai saw, even though we were no longer able to see him, was the brightest one. And she's the one who wrote. And she says, I'm feeling the need to connect to my blood grandfather. I'm feeling something is happening to me that I don't understand. And this is taking a great deal of courage on my part. I know I'm really fucked up. I know that I don't know how to do this. She's 17. Really fucked up time to be fucked up. And so it came to me, and all I saw, this is Prakriti. She's just going to give me another lesson. And Satchmai had a very different response. She said, how wonderful. The Shakti forms just always want more experience. So, and I had come out of my samadhi, by the way. So I've just come out of this purge. And I'm just kind of getting my feet under me. And I have this little thing come up from Prakriti. There is no grandchild. There is no grandfather. And none of these things are real or existent. So I had to talk to Satyamai for a while. She says, she just wants a grandfather. Just pretend you're a grandfather. Write to her as if you were a grandfather who is happy to hear from a granddaughter he hadn't heard from for years and years and years.
Years.
How many years?
12.
12 years.
It's been 12 years.
I knew her when she was a little girl. I knew them all in there. And we were fun, and it was playful, and I was back then I was grandpa. But then the mother said, no, I don't want anything to do with you. You can't see the children. So and it was done for 12 years. So, she's been found out. The daughter is now in a safe situation. The children are all separate, but she's the only one who's contacted me. So I wrote her a letter, and I'm saying, I wrote something, and Satchmai says, no, you can't write that. She doesn't care about you as a spiritual teacher. She wants a grandpa, the blood grandpa. So you have to respond to the listening. So I sat down and I said, I am so happy to hear from you. It has been too long. And it fills my heart to read this. And I invite you to come and join us.
Well, to visit. He also said something that I think was pretty profound. He said, when I lost my son, I lost you guys also.
Yeah. And in that moment, a chunk of my experience came up and rose, just like you're feeling, right? A reunion with those lost pieces of life that had been just let go of, given up long ago. So it was a recognition of that whole experiential component coming up.
But what was really sweet, I mean, she did write to you. She wrote something about, you're not one of those cult gurus who just wants the money. It was really cute. I mean, she was expressing herself in this very straight truth. It's just like her father was just like, boom, just the same way. She's like the rebel with a cause. She would have a cause. But then she went on to ask the questions, that were coming from her, not her knowing, but she doesn't know why she knows. Like, can you tell me about Kundalini awakening? It's like, huh? But she had been on the website. She had, and she had grown up with her mother, who basically scoffed at what Satri does. So she's the one stepping
all her
out.
other children have pretty much agreed with her. So there was really not much access.
Yeah.
So
we'll see what happens. It took a lot of courage for her to do this, a lot, because she is going against the flow.
She's found her own an authority out of desperation.
Yeah.
She took the biggest hit of the negative karma from the mother. So there was actually legal intervention to protect her. So there is this powerful quality of authority to be able to reach out like she had. So my son had it. She has it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because I did know that if anyone's going to reach out, it would be her. She was the one. Yeah.
In the thread, it always takes one person to be pulled, one piece, and then the whole thing unravels and it opens up a possibility.
So we'll see.
Yeah, so we'll see. So this is the nature of the unfolding is continuous as long as you choose to continue to participate in existence. And what I see is that when we develop this inclination to be of service, then when these higher states come, we come back to serve with them. And part of my work is to develop this ability in people to take what they have and to serve with it as a means of setting up a spiritual practice, a yoga of action, a Gita, that to be able to become more and more capable of manifesting that divine principle in the world, and then in the process, in your awareness. So there is this place where through service, we'll take on actions we wouldn't by our normal nature. That's the nature of service. It's always sacrifice. It's always serving something that you wouldn't do otherwise. The nature of sacrifice is going beyond your preferences, beyond what you know. So by itself, it's the principle of the Bhagavad Gita, is to serve something greater than yourself. In the process, the purpose of existence starts feeding that quality of your awareness that allows you to grow in the process simultaneously. So instead of just one for one lifetime and the other for the next lifetime, and you come out of the ruins of that in the next lifetime, it's this concurrent motion by which we can purposefully organize our lives. This is the yoga. That's the next possibility of yoga. It's proportional to the shift in the collective consciousness, so that there is a truth in what we would call real life, the life of mind, senses, body, vital, and there is a truth of ourself, the true reality that can live in that life. They're both equally real. They both have their role to play in the unfoldment of the possibility that existence is for each of us. Okay, there you have it. That's the message for tonight. So if anybody would like to come forward and share something for themselves. Okay, Marcel. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I am going back to Amsterdam in a couple of days. Although it wasn't really a decision, it was a good decision to come here. Like you said, it was automatic. I had the wish to see in my awareness these structures that are still very clinchy. And especially yesterday, it was so present. It was one dark cloud, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't there, it was here.
So it's funny, when we see the dark cloud, we have more light than usual.
Yeah. And this is what made it really painful, because the being didn't want it, you know, although I knew it was good and I could just stay with it. It was so dark because it was the same cloud as I have been in during this years of cocaine addiction.
Yeah. In your lowest time when you were overtaken.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've always known that this wasn't truth, but I was still in it for years and years and years. So that was a hell of a day, but I got through it. And it was only half a day, to be honest, because, you know, and this is what I'm so thankful for. I see it dissolving piece by piece.
And that's the nature of the work, is not to be fooled by the repeating of the same old negativity, but to rather hold it with a different context, a different purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you become a darkness eater. You start healing the structures that have obscured you in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something to heal.
Yeah, you got plenty of work. You're young enough. There's plenty
Exactly.
of shit.
So
Yeah.
there's some time.
You get the rest of your life to work on the dark.
Yeah.
Not once you, like I say, once you're done with yours, you start working on everybody else's.
Yeah, that's what I've learned. Yeah. So the main thing, and this is why I'm sitting here, is the relationship with my parents.
Yeah.
I told you about that shortly.
Mm-hmm.
And I have just a very practical question, because I can take authority about a lot of decisions to make in my life. I feel that.
Good.
You know, and I want to take the authority.
Very good.
And when it feels good to ask for your guidance, I will do that.
Very good.
And that is mainly because it's too strong for me right now to.
Still too new for you to have enough.
I think
authority.
so. Yeah. So it's whether I need to keep seeing my parents or not in the coming months or years.
I actually think it's a place of healing for you to go and speak your forgiveness.
Yes.
And so that they get it.
Yeah.
So you have to be, there'll be a listening. The listening comes, that's when you can speak it. So either your father will be in the anguish and you can let him know your love and forgiveness for all that he couldn't do or be for you because of his condition, and the same with your mother. And so it's really the Ponopono, it's really over with you. The more you can forgive them, the more they can forgive themselves. And so that's your first arena. This is the one big obstacle in your life is the failure of the parental relationship. And you actually have the power to engage in this and not fear. Now, whatever darkness that may rise out of this will then become something else, fodder for your consciousness to keep growing and meeting. Because there's anguish, there's what it felt like you when you first got it, that your father didn't know who he was and couldn't be there for you in the way you needed. I mean, there's all these pieces of our identity that got locked up in those past experiences where you actually have to come into that identity and experience it as you experienced it back then in order to dissolve it. But it becomes very rich because very soon all that locked energy comes to you and there is this greater presence and love and forgiveness and capacity. So that's the work for you, Marcel. And you are a young man, you're still in the world. You still need to follow the arc of your samskara in terms of accomplishing and doing and being effective and learning how to expand the range of your effectiveness with people so that what is coming to you can have an avenue to flow.
Yeah.
So I suspect young people will start being pulled to you the more you're able to make progress on this journey. But at the same time, I advise you not to go into teaching mode because the energy has to build in your system.
Yes.
Because you want to reach that point of no return or close enough to it that it will then simply grow as time goes on.
Yeah.
So keep yourself dedicated as you are, purposeful and organized. Apply personal discipline in the structure of your life so you stay connected. The meditation practice or whatever practice helps you stay connected to yourself. Keep that vigorously part of your day-to-day life.
All right. I will.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
And you have found me. That's your secret treasure. It's got your back. By the way, Marcel knows audio video stuff. So when we go to Amsterdam, he'll probably be a good assistant.
Yeah, the rumor has already made the rounds.
Okay, anyone else? Yeah. Kim, come forward. Yeah. Mike.
Microphone.
Right there. Yeah.
So the same thing that
Hold it up. Yeah.
the same thing that Marcel said. He's meeting that. What if a person can't meet it? Like they have a father that dies, or in your situation, maybe they're incarcerated or whatever.
Then there's two things. It has to do with your own readiness. So you have to have enough personal strength in your own self. That's the most important, Kim. Keep strengthening that quality of abiding in yourself and trying to let go of the structure that gets hooked into attachment, hooks into getting identified, feeling obligation, distracts herself with the drama and the story that goes on around her. So you want to keep strengthening that part that separates herself from that. When that has made enough separation, then what you can do is in your meditation, you can bring up your father, you can bring up your mother, and ask for their forgiveness. And why do you ask for their forgiveness, even though they may have been the abusers? It's because when you start for forgiveness, a momentum of healing can occur, rather than when you start from being a victim or in reaction or powerless. So the Pono prayer, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. So that prayer, bring that forward so you don't have to be with them. They don't have to be with you, because what you're really working with is your own misplaced identity and attachment and associations to not only the people, but all the experiences and the stories that happened as you came out of your life to this point in time. So For you, no need. Work on it internally. The other way to work on it is as you're doing now, is continue to practice, continue to be in the energy of the room, keep organizing yourself so your life becomes simple. And don't let drama in. Literally, just don't let it in. Don't answer the emails. Don't answer the phone calls. Just, I'm not available. I've checked out, so that you can preserve your consciousness so it can keep strengthening with itself in itself. That's my direction.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks.
And let's see if there's anyone else. All right, we did have a little announcement. We are going to be doing another intensive, Satsang and myself together, August 4th. It's going to be 7 o'clock or Western.
No. It's an all
Oh, excuse me,
day.
11 o'clock. That's right.
It's a Saturday.
thinking.
It'll be 11 a.m. to, I think we went to 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we are bringing
Live
in people
broadcast.
from,
Right.
it's going to be live broadcast. It'll be Zoom. Tom was working on it today with Natalie and Christina, but we're going to be doing, for those who are at the 6-day or who are able to tune in, we did the stages of love. He just pretty much did it right for the room. So we're going to expound on the stages of love, and we were going to tie it in with the something else. Oh, the stages of consciousness or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It was the stages.
Anyway, the email will be going out. The price is pretty much the same. I think the Zoom price is $25, but there'll only room for 30 people in the room. So if you're a resident or someone who wants to be here for this, then you need to get signed up, because once we hit 30, we're going to shut it down and you'll have to go on either Crowdcast or Zoom. So,
Okay.
there's no, it's all Zoom this time. Yeah. Well, how did we do it last? Oh, never mind. Never mind. We're not
Okay.
going there.
All right.
Okay.
Let's see if there's anything else there. There's an ocean there of where this could go. And that's probably why I'm going to continue to manifest till I drain the ocean a little. But we're not going to do it tonight. All right. So it's been wonderful to be with you all tonight. It's like I feel like this is where I am grounding. This is where I'm building my base. So when I come back, it restores my ability to do this work and to continue this work, to be here. And your partnership and your aspiration and your alignment with the purpose of this work is like nurturing my ability to continue to do this work. Okay. All right. So let's finish with a silent sitting. It'll be 10 minutes. Om Namo Brahmane Satchitananda Murtaye. Om Namo Brahmane Satchitananda Murtaye. Om Namo Brahmane Satchitananda Murtaye. All glory to Buddha. Namaste.